לקראת הבחירות ב-BC קיבצנו מספר רעיונות עם מועמדים שדיברנו איתם במהלך השנה או שהגיעו במיוחד לאירועים של הקהילה.
We have to, as a collective of minds, and I've been bringing this to the attention of Indigenous leaders, they need to speak out about this. This is not right. This is not standing in solidarity with Palestinians for the right to live a dignified life. This is about creating more violence, and it needs to end. It needs to stop. This cannot be brought into Canada. And I'm so tired of people comparing this whole situation with us here in Canada. Orange Shirt Day was about a bunch of kids that were taken, forcefully removed from their home. We're supposed to remember those that were taken and never made it home, and those that survived. And unfortunately, you have 7 generations of trauma that continue to linger in our communities that we're trying to get over ourselves. That we keep getting pulled back into such a radical leftist ideology that is harming Indigenous Canadians. That is not helping us. We are supposed to build allyship with every Canadian, regardless of race. But when you have these activists out there that are clinging on to the coattails of the Indigenous movement, Indigenous reconciliation, that is setting us back. We're not here to create any violence with any race. We never have. It's very frustrating for me when I hear people try to compare our struggles with your struggles or the Palestinian struggles. They are worlds apart. There may be some similarities, but we're not causing war and hate and anger and violence and murder to our neighbors.
Yeah. That's
terrorism. And it frustrates me that people aren't separating the two. And then to hear the chant, but again, I'm going to keep going back to it. The vile chants towards Jewish people is infuriating. This is Canada. And the fact that our governments aren't saying anything about it, it really angers me. And so far, the only party I've seen that continues to condemn these protests is the federal Conservatives. First and foremost, I could only hope for peace for everyone on both sides, for the Israelis and the Palestinians. I hope you could come to a resolve and unity and as one, because I always say that together we are stronger. You and I and anybody that's out there that wants to solve peace and build this country together, we're stronger together, because without you, without Canadians, Indigenous communities cannot build proper capacity with those that have the experience to help us grow our own timber, so we could be a part of Canada and not apart from Canada.
And I just want you to know that on behalf of the Conservative Party that I'm representing, that we stand with you, that we stand with the community.
Thank you.
And there's no need to thank us, because this is what we do for each other. And it's never okay, regardless of what your purpose is, to take hostages. It is not okay, and we demand that they bring them home, and they bring them home now. So thank you for being here. Thank you for continuing to be a voice of those who remain held. Thank you for including me, and thank you for sharing this emotional time with me. So on behalf of our party, on behalf of my community, we are standing with you, and that won't change. Thank you.
Speeches that were glorifying and explicitly praising Hamas murderers. We were seeing chants that included calls for another intifada. We were seeing hordes of protesters marching down Victoria streets, obstructing and blocking traffic, and shouting these hateful chants and intimidating threats at Jews and other members of the public every week since October the 2nd. And I didn't know what to do, like many of you, I'm sure. And I thought, well, there's not much I can do, but what can I offer? Well, I started just by expressing myself. You know, I called publicly for investigations, for arrests. It was obvious to me that these actions were illegal. Nothing happened. I encouraged my party and we commenced a petition, which many of you probably signed, thank you, to call for these investigations into what appeared to be unlawful actions. I wrote to the Victoria Police and asked them to investigate these apparent legal violations, and nothing happened. And then in March, the spring, we heard rumors that maybe the police weren't acting because they believed the prosecution service wouldn't prosecute if they did. And I don't know if that's true or not, but ultimately it doesn't matter, because there's always an excuse for courage to wait. There's always another day to do the right thing. So I did what lawyers do. I sat down, I holed myself up in the office for a few days, and I wrote a memo. I said, well, I'm going to figure out what's going on here. And it got a little out of hand. It's 26 pages long. And it looked at all of the evidence that has been collected. There have been citizen journalists like Charles Bodie, who I believe is here, and others that have documented what's been happening every week. And, you know, seeing the speeches that I referenced, and the chants, and the obstructions, and the harassment of people just for holding Jewish flags, and the assaults that have been documented. You know, Rabbi Lynn's partner has experienced this. So, you know, I put all the evidence together, and I looked at the law, and I wrote a memo, and it's been given to Chief Delmanic of the Victoria Police, and it's now made its way to the Attorney General's office and Nikki Sharma as well. And here's what it says. So here's what it says. I hope you've got another 2 hours. It is 20, no. So I'll give you the short version. The good news, yeah, exactly. The first point is, we don't even have to talk about hate speech if we don't want to. Because Section 430, are you all writing this down? Section 430 says that it's unlawful to obstruct people in the use of their property. So you can't just block people from driving their cars down the road. Amen. Section 423 says it's unlawful to obstruct or block a highway. Woo! And that doesn't just mean highways. So all those of you looking for loopholes, you aspiring lawyers, any street that the public has access to is a highway. So it's time for courage. It's time for courage. Who here is going to encourage the Victoria Police to do the right thing? Who here is going to stand with their neighbors, their Jewish community, with the entire public, to stand for the rule of law in Victoria? Thank you. Shalom.
What are the three major changes you wish to do?
Well, with regards to what's going on for the Jewish community, the three big things we need to do is we need to crack down on hate. We need to make sure we support our police so that we can stop these incidents of hate in our society. We need to immediately start implementing educational outcomes. We need theory for Holocaust and Jewish history needs to be taught in our schools. Anti-Semitism needs to be taught. And the third is, as a government, we're going to make sure within the government itself that we root out any anti-Semitism. We want to make sure that everyone in this province has an opportunity to be able to raise their family in peace and fulfill the dream that is British Columbia, a place that is a melting pot of all people to come together and build their futures.
Thank you very much.
As a Conservative government, should we have that honor of forming government, we will do that. We will make sure that we stand up and we bring hate to an end in this province. There should be no place for hate. We need to make sure that in our schools, people learn their full history of what's gone on. People learn about the Holocaust. People learn about this, what happened here. but most importantly, that we make sure our education system teaches acceptance, just something that should be basic for everybody that is in our society. We need actually as a government also to make sure that we set the tone, that we lead by example, that we make sure that within our government, within organizations, that we have no tolerance for any sort of hate, for any sort of anti-Semitism that's up. And I tell you, when I read a few weeks ago, that there was a group of teachers who wanted to build a program within our education system to teach about anti-Semitism, to teach about the Holocaust. And when the BCTF said, no, we won't fund it, we won't allow you to do that, that is just wrong. That is wrong, and we'll make sure that gets corrected. I want to take a moment to introduce the team that is here with me, and I wrote it down because there was quite a few of us that came here and that joined us as the Conservative Party that are running. I want to start with John Cooper, who is running for us here in Vancouver, Little Mountain, as well as Brian Burdett, who's running for us here in Vancouver as well. Dallas Brody, and I know you all know and love Dallas. Dallas is doing some great work for us in Vancouver, Sultana. And of course, she has been a very staunch advocate for Jewish people and for Israel. With them as well is Michelle Molyneux, who's running in Richmond, sees them. Michelle, thank you for coming and being part of this. And I know Michelle wants to organize a gathering in Richmond, actually, to have a discussion on this as well. Paul Ratchford is here. Paul is running, and he's going to be running actually against David Eby in Vancouver, Point Grey. And so he is the man who's going to take out David Eby. As well as Steve Cooner. Steve Cooner is another one of our candidates from Richmond. Tom Akamanu, I should say. Tom's kind of here funding for us in one of the other ridings here in Vancouver, just over there. And of course, I want to make sure to recognize especially Eleanor Sturko, one of our MLAs from Surrey. She's also a very strong advocate of it. So it's great to have her as part of our team as well. I guess the last message I just want to send to everybody on this occasion. We should all be calling for Canada, for every government in this country to stand up and to call for the return of the hostages. Let's bring them home. Let's get them back. It is long since past time. Bring them home.
Well, I think this is really one of the challenging questions of our time, and I think the NDP government in BC has endorsed under John Horgan the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, which is also in Canada's anti-racism policy as well. We do have an anti-hate act here in BC that references anti-Semitism, of course, and I was not part of that government. That
include anti-Zionism, or does that include anti-Zionism?
So it references anti-Semitism, and when you look at something like the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, which is in Canada's anti-racism policy, for instance, there are a number of illustrative examples that speaks about what is legitimate criticism of Israel or any country, of policies, of a variety of things that governments do that, and there's people within and outside of Israel that are very critical of Israeli policies and the Israeli government. But what it suggests is that when criticism of Israel gets into territory where we dehumanize, demonize, delegitimize, apply a double standard to Israel, then we're getting into territory that ventures into drawing on anti-Semitic tropes that we know have existed for 2,000 years. And so I think the purpose of that definition, of the IRA definition, has not been has been really as a working, non-legally binding tool, and not really something to inform policymakers. So it's certainly not meant to stifle freedom of expression or anything like that.